Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Who let the dogs out?
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
They were out in L.A., that's for sure.
Yes, sirree. Out in full force as the Georgia Bulldogs won not only the national championship, but did it in style. The largest margin of victory in the history of the playoffs.
Wow.
And tied to TCU, their sixth largest loss. It tied a record for their sixth largest loss ever in school history. So TCU will just have to wait for another year. They haven't won a national championship since 1938. For Georgia,
wow.
It's back-to-back national championships, and they did it first class.
Very exciting. And I think we have some highlights from that game.
I certainly hope so. So here we go. As Stetson Bennett was
against TCU played out
on
the same field where the Super Bowl was played in February, a national championship game in January 23. Scoreless early, and there goes Stetson Bennett.
Stetson Bennett going out and running for his first of two running touchdowns for him.
And we'll take a tug of
he
some
threw for four more.
Oxygen, and TCU would turn it over, which led to a field goal. So it's 10-0. But Max Duggan and this TCU team, as everybody knows, they have
TCU comes back. Georgia's up 10-0 at this point, and TCU comes back. They score a touchdown, and it's now kicks the point. It's now 10-7. You say, okay, well, we're going to have a game. This is how championships ought to be played. But Georgia, I think just about every time they touch the football, they score. Here's Stetson Bennett. Big hit to Ladd McConkey, who had a great night. He caught a couple of touchdown passes. Just look at this. You talk about wide open.
Georgia breaks the record for the most points in the first quarter of a national championship
you heard the announcer there saying the most points in the first quarter. No team had scored 17 points in the first quarter in this new championship series that's been running for like 9 or 10 years now. Once again, Stetson Bennett running for a first down there. Looked like he might be trapped behind the line. And then runs it in for his second running touchdown. I just love his expression.
And it's all cake and ice cream. 3rd and 7, TCU looking deep. And Javon Bullard with the pick of Duggan. He was looking for Quentin Johnston.
And that outstanding quarterback that they had for TCU just wasn't his night. Gets intercepted on that play, and then back come the Bulldogs to go up big time here. And it just wasn't any doubt in your mind that they were going to win this ball game.
Got to the 2, got to the 1, and wasn't able to score. Turned it over, but Georgia was just scoring and scoring and
now they're trying desperately to kind of catch up to it before halftime, and Georgia intercepts. And just before halftime, score another touchdown. Just look at this catch.
They were on their A game last night.
Mitchell, I am telling you. They had a couple of cases for pass interference, but it wasn't called, and they didn't need it. They held on to the football as we go to the third quarter, and Georgia just keeps pouring it on. And you have to feel real sorry, I think, for TCU. You want a championship game, to be exciting. You want it to be like the Ohio State game to a degree. You still want to win, and you might have to take your blood pressure medicine. If you're not on it, you might be on it before the game's over. But championships, should be, really, a tight down to the wire type thing. And TCU they just couldn't keep up with Georgia. There was just too much power. And once again, Stetson Bennett doing his magic. There's McConkey again. And just look at the TCU coach, and all he can say is, "Wow." There's McConkey.
Huge, and Kirby calls a timeout.
And,
give his guy Stetson Bennett.
Take Stetson Bennett out of the game,
as he walks off the field for the
and
last time
as a Georgia Bulldog quarterback. They tried to give him the Gatorade shower there for Kirby at the end. Missed a little bit, got him on the shoulder. And what a great championship. So out in L.A. last night, but the best thing to come out of L.A. in some time now. So congratulations to the Georgia Bulldogs, 65-7.
Consecutive season, first team
Oh,
to do
that-
So they made the point. If you had bet on Georgia, you got the point spread as well.
Head coach of Georgia.
Wow.
And given the fact that he had those ties to Saban on the staff, it's interesting.
So
to put these numbers
congratulations
side
to
by
the
side and see
Bulldogs.
what they look like.
And you know
Sports
what?
with more wins,
What gets me
better
about
winning
anything
percentage.
about
Saban did win 3
the
titles
media
in the first
more than
7.
anything else,
Kirby
but
now
he
the
said, come back and
first
said,
former
"Do you
assistant.
think you'll have a three-peat? For
Nick
God's
Saban to
sake,
win
can we
multiple
can we
national
celebrate and enjoy this
Coach is
one?"
gonna
That are
join the
talking
ceiling
about
bid. In the meantime,
next year, for
some
goodness
thoughts
sakes.
from the
It's
podium
just
after losing,
amazing.
5 guys in the first round, 10 in the first 125. I
So
think 15
Stetson will
overall.
go high, I
Had to
think,
be
in the
tough, right?
NFL draft. He's going to be
Well, it was a
something.
big part. You know, he lost whatever it was, 15 draft picks and however many portals you guys have reported it over and over, and we didn't gain anybody. So the development part was super, super important. I'm going to tell you another important day was about 3 days from right now last year when he came in my office and he said, "I'm trying to decide if I'm going to come back or ride off in the wind." He goes, "I don't understand. Everybody's telling me that I should just ride off in the sunset and be the legendary quarterback that won a national title." And he said, "That's just not who I am." And he's like, I don't get it. Why should I do that when I have an opportunity to play again? Like why don't we go win it again? And you know, I'm kind of thinking, well, that'd be nice, but we lost 15 draft picks. I mean, it might not be that easy this time. And he had full conviction that he wanted to come back and go opposite of the mainstream. Like all he wanted to do. He was here, I think, a year with Jake. And he knew that Jake had left early, and he brought it up to me, and he said, "I want to play. Like, I want to go play football and prove to people that this is no fluke. We can do this." And he did everything he said he was going to do.
Georgia closed as 13.5-point favorites tonight. That was the largest in any college football championship game. I believe I gave them out in winners. Stanford Steve was with me there. Oh.
Isn't it fun to win, Bill?
Oh yeah, it is. And to Stetson Bennett, what a success story! What a marvelous story. Came up the kid that nobody thought could play. He was a walk-on. He didn't get a scholarship, and wins back-to-back national championships. The first time that's happened in the new playoff system.
Okay, so is this his last year?
Yeah,
He's a senior?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was when Kirby took him out of the game last night. That was it. And
What a way to go out.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, go out a champion. He started 32 games for Georgia. He won 29 of them, and was hardly ever. He didn't hear a breath mentioned from the national media about him being a candidate for Heisman Trophy. He wound up fourth in the voting. The young man, the wonderful quarterback for TCU, was second in the voting. So he had 2 Heisman guys out there that were duking it out. My heart goes out to TCU because you battle for this. This is their best season ever. Nobody ever expected them to be there. I think the odds, if you were a betting person and you had taken the odds on TCU and bet like $100, I think they were 235 to 1. To make it to the playoffs, much less go for play for the national championship. You wouldn't have to worry about where your next meal's coming from.
Yeah,
for darn sure. You'd be counting the big bucks. So.
And I bet there are some people that are counting some big bucks this morning.
Great season for TCU. I'm so glad to see that. They had to rebuild their program years ago because they got what was called the death penalty from the NCAA, where they had to suspend their program for 3 years. Because of violations that they made. Of course, the NCAA. Sorry, I get those two confused sometimes. But the NCAA that does a marvelous job. In fact, they once won an award for the way their offices are lighted. But nevertheless, as Vince Dooley, the late great Vince Dooley of Georgia, used to say, when you see a team that has been given was written for 160 violations. He said, boy, that sounds like a boatload until you look at the regulation book that looks like an unabridged dictionary, almost looks like, the stimulus package. It's there. So to give you an example, he said he could be driving across the campus in a severe thunderstorm. If one of his players was running across the field, he could not, if he stopped and picked him up, that would be an NCAA violation.
Wow.
In fact, they came up, and when his son, I think his eldest son, was playing in the Georgia All-Star high school football game, he couldn't go to the game because it was a violation of NCAA rules of making too many coaching appearances at high school football games. So he couldn't go to the Georgia All-Star game to see his son play. He had to stay in the hotel and watch it on television. That's when the NCAA actually changed the rule, and they actually called it the Dooley rule. So at least that changed. So no other coach is going to have to put up with that. If their kid is playing in an all-star game, they can go, whether they're a coach or not. So congratulations. The NCAA does such a great job.
Yes,
So-
and our friend Lizzie Warren agreed with us. She said, yes, winning is fun.
Yeah. Tell that to the libs who think that everybody ought to be the same. You see that another high school they've uncovered up there in Virginia that didn't tell kids that they've won a National Merit
Yep.
Scholarship. Yeah, because
In the
of-
name of equity.
in the name of equity. Yeah. In other words, we don't have winners and losers. Everybody is the same. We also call that communism.
Yeah.
So-
And, I just think that it's so important to have people experience what it's like to win. There's nothing like it.
Exactly.
The adrenaline rush from it, the high you get from it, there's nothing that compares to it.
In fact, that's the reason also that they stopped playing for ties. In other words, it used to be when a game ended in a tie, that was it. You didn't break the tie. And as the late great Bear Bryant always used to say, a tie's like kissing your sister. So they now have rules for breaking ties so that we know who actually won. And in fact, that was another thing that happened at a Georgia high school championship, where the game ended in a tie, and they just gave co-championship trophies, and the coaches both said, I was in favor of that rule till it happened to me.
Exactly. Exactly.
all of a sudden, oh, I'm the co-champion. Oh, thanks a lot.
It doesn't have the same ring to it, does it?
It really doesn't. Well, coming up next, by the way, if you want to still get the cheapest gas in America here in Georgia, you got to fill up your car before midnight, because as of midnight tonight, the state income tax on gas, or the state gas tax, goes back into effect.
I'm not a fan of that, but we've had a tax holiday for quite some time on our gasoline here. Almost a year.
Yeah, about 10 months, which is almost a year. You're right. I can do arithmetic too. I have one of them college educations. Coming up next, by the way, we're going to stick with the football theme just a little bit and show you that great opening kickoff return for Buffalo as Damon is back. Lamar is out of the hospital and back in Boston. So Baltimore, Buffalo.
Buffalo.
One of those that
Buffalo.
starts with a B. Yes.
Up north, yeah.
Yeah, for E. That's coming up next.
At Get Real America, we'd like to thank the Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly for all their efforts on making a difference in our communities.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy Tuesday. Glad to have you aboard here with us on Get Real America and celebrating the Georgia victory last night as our Bulldogs won back-to-back national championships. But it was on Sunday that the Buffalo Bills were back on the field 6 days after that horrendous Monday Night Football game in which Damar Hamlin suffered some sort of severe injury, cardiac injury, and was watching from his hospital, made a remarkable recovery. I don't think prayer had a lot to do with it, but maybe it did. But he's watching from the hospital room, and the Buffalo Bills opened up their game something like this.
Trots out onto the field, the big one in Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills begin the day as a 2 seed. They will lock up the 2 seed if they win.
The Bills taking on the Patriots. Haven't had a run back for a touchdown, a kickoff run back for a touchdown in 3 seasons. And here goes Nyheim Hines, 96-yard kickoff return. Just unbelievable. And there were, some people say, the NFL choreographed that. Oh, please. Once again, have you ever seen a football movie? Yeah, the choreographing is really not possible.
Yeah, no. and he is just such a grateful person. He had a charity going during Christmas. And
Toys for Tots. He'd been doing that for years, and he'd gotten, and people said, if you want to help out, give a donation. They were looking for maybe $20,000, $30,000. He was up, had about $7,000 in the charity. Last I heard, it was at $7 million.
Yep. And so he was doing good things, and I think that good things will come from this from him. But his tweet was, headed home to Buffalo today with a lot of love in my heart. Watching the world come together around me on Sunday was truly an amazing feeling. The same love you have all shown me is the same love that I plan to put back in the world and more, bigger than football. So I think that speaks volumes to who he is as a person. He is a football player, but definitely a very good human being that I'm glad recovered and is back in Buffalo, still recovering from his cardiac issue that he had last week.
So Hamlin watching from his hospital bed, and by the way, he sent out this very nice tweet. He's still on Twitter, and he thanked all the great personnel and medical staff at the University of Cincinnati Hospital. And then he said, and then he was now back in a hospital in Buffalo.
Yep.
And he was thanking them for their great work and their care that they're giving him and the love that they're showing him as well. And he said he wants to show the love back to America for all the prayers, and he was overcome with emotion on just exactly how this is brought together, where we see first time I've appreciated the NFL for kneeling. In a long time, and kneeling in prayer. So, prayer works.
Yep, and I think this is a feel-good story, and it's the first one we've had on the national level in a really long time, I would say. So,
absolutely right.
We're glad he's doing well, and I'm sure that we will update you on his progress as things move forward.
He'll keep going, and that Toys for Tots program that he's got going is really taken off, and I think, and I hope it puts a spotlight on that great organization as over the years. When I was doing morning radio, I had a chance to speak with the Marine retired general who was in charge of that program, and trying to raise money on Toys for Tots. And it is such a worthwhile charity that so many kids get to celebrate Christmas who otherwise would not.
Yep, always a good cause. Well, switching gears a little bit.
Yeah, just a tad.
Biden, he has just the past week has been real interesting with our president of the United States, Joe Biden. He, number one, I don't even know where to start. We have so much Biden coverage now.
He has solved the situation. It's not a crisis on the border; it's a situation.
Yeah.
And he and the hard work is being done by Kamala Harris, our esteemed president. At least that's what he's called her on several occasions, including last week. who has gotten maybe to the root causes of what's going on. She's good on those root causes, and they have now come up with a way to solve this problem. An app on your phone. So if the people who want asylum can go to it, use an app on their phone, that your taxpayer dollars are going to pay for this app on the phone because nothing's too good for illegal aliens.
Well, and wouldn't it be, they would have to do it on the other side of the border, so they would have to be in Mexico, they wouldn't be in the U.S., but they would have a cell phone with an app functionality to cross the border for asylum, because
maybe paid for by the same people who, when they first started coming across, had the "Thank You Biden" T-shirts on.
Oh, yeah.
Wonder where all those came from.
It's very interesting how this all works. And when you start questioning how they're getting cell phones, how they're getting access to all of these things before they even get into the country in order to seek asylum, they're also saying that they're going to allow asylum for 30,000 people, which I think a month. Which I think that is that's an incredibly large number.
Yeah, so over 5 million people have poured across since we still haven't come up to the second anniversary of this guy's inauguration. That's still a couple of weeks away. And 5 million people have crossed the border who should not be here. And that is more than the population of at least 2 states.
Yeah, and they're just going to keep, when you look at, where's that going to put us in 2024, Bill? And what kind of shenanigans are we going to see from the Senate and this Congress? I'm hoping that they can do something to stop it. But how are they going to try and address all of these illegal aliens? Our friend Lizzie Warren says, love that Colorado sending illegals to Chicago and New York. It's interesting how that hasn't been a huge headline, but yet when a Republican governor does it, it's a big issue. But this is Democrat to Democrat, so
it's great to be a Democrat, isn't it?
Yeah. You're never held accountable, and you're never blasted in the media, except for on our show.
The media, which is also Democrat, so we repeat ourselves.
Yeah.
It is just unbelievable. And then, of course, all the fentanyl that's coming across. This, one pill and you're killed.
Yep. And 5 million plus illegals, and then how many terrorists are included in that? I think that's a really good point.
These are the people we know about.
Yeah, exactly.
The
gotaways.
This didn't count in the getaways, the gotaways. These are the people that we know came across the border, but they're keeping track of them. And I loved it when Jen Psaki was still the minister of propaganda at the White House, and they are asking her why are these people getting cell phones? So we can keep track of them, so we can call them and tell them when their court date is.
So we can call them, check on them, make sure they're doing okay, see if they need some more food,
make sure
hotel.
And encouraging them to get the Fauci ouchie. Yeah, so because they're coming across. If you flew in here on a plane, you couldn't land in America, come to America without being vaccinated. But go across the border, unless you're an Afghan ally of ours who was fighting with our soldiers, you're in like Flint. We need to do something about that. And by the way, we had a rally here. I'm not sure if it was a rally last Saturday because it was confusing and there was no date on it. But we did have a rally for the January 6th prisoners. Saying,
it was on Friday.
Free the January 6th prisoners. We've got people who are still in jail over the January 6th, which, of course, as you know, was the worst thing since the Civil War to happen to America. But at the same time, these people ought to be at least given their due process, which happens to be in the Constitution, which is part of that precious democracy that the Democrats seem so concerned about.
Well, and I think that we need to keep in mind that democracy does not mean the same thing to you and I as it does to the Democrats, because democracy is a cultural revolution that they've started with this Marxism and communism in mind, and our friend Lizzie's on fire today. She says if cell phones can track the Idaho killer, then they can track illegals. You're not wrong.
That's true. That's true.
Well, and I think that's interesting too. You bring up a really good point that the 2000 Mules documentary, when it came out, they were saying, well, you can't really trust that data, but that's also how they've tracked people that attended January 6th that were in DC, and that's how they've gone after a lot of people that really never made it into the Capitol even. But when it came out and that was used for the 2000 Mules and tracking all of the ballot harvesting that was going on, all of a sudden It's not valid technology for that, but we tracked the Idaho killer, and now supposedly we could track illegals. I don't think that they would ever do it, but
no, they won't. Yeah.
Especially since we know they're trafficking children. Our government is helping to traffic children, which I think is a huge issue.
And isn't it interesting that, speaking of lying to us about stuff, what about the job growth that we supposedly experienced?
Didn't you know we've had so much job growth since Biden's been in office?
Man,
it's just been
man.
incredible.
Yeah.
I just feel like there's so many people working too, right?
Yes, yeah. He's taking a victory lap every time we turn around when he's not on vacation.
Yeah.
147 vacation days so far out of the 2 years he's been in office.
Well, and something that we didn't talk about is his recent vacation.
Yeah.
It actually happened that the prosecutor there that was suing one of the banks here in the U.S. all of a sudden was fired after he was down there on vacation. It's very weird how things just happen when he shows up. But
So the president talking about that job growth in the second quarter?
I think we have a clip
Tell
of
us
that.
all about it.
A recent report from the Philly Fed suggests that the Bureau of Labor Statistics might have overstated job growth in the second quarter by 1 million jobs. Once again, Steve, I could take that as a good thing, or it could be good or bad, because maybe the Fed doesn't need to be quite as mean, quite as grinchy.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Joe. There are huge monetary policy implications for this, but first, I think we need to understand what's going on. This new data series by economists at the Philly Fed creating some economic and political controversy by estimating that national job growth might have been overstated, as you say, by 1 million jobs in the second quarter. Let's look at what this is. It's called an early benchmark revision. They use quarterly data, which aggregates unemployment insurance payments from around the country. It's designed to give an early read on payroll revisions by state, but they also calculate a national change, and that's where the controversy comes in. The Philly Fed believes its early report could show turning points in the economy before the other payroll data that we all follow, especially when it comes to by states. And they warn that their national results can help show the direction of revisions, but that the totals aren't necessarily comparable to the BLS.
I love lying with statistics, don't you?
Well, yes, they said they created all these jobs, but when you have a government shutdown for almost 2 years, I mean, yeah, it's going to look like we have a job increase when we're just actually going back to work.
If you're told to move out of your house, and then a few months later you're told you can move back in your house, that doesn't mean that real estate, that means the house has been sold again. No. You're just moving back into your house. So if somebody has to leave their job and then goes back to their job, that's not a new job. That's not creating a new job.
No, it's definitely not.
And listen, there are a lot more people that need to be going back. And when I see some of these homeless people that are on the side of the road every day holding up signs, I'm sorry about their plight, but I'm sorry I'm not giving money anymore. As the old country song said, "My give a damn is broken," and I want to make sure they should be cared for. They can go by going to work. I always loved the guy that was standing out in front of a Waffle House. See just about every day, and I said, and there's a big help wanted sign in the window. I said, hey pal, instead of standing out here begging, and I know you don't have to take it out of your taxes or anything, but how about walking about a football field's length up there and get a job at the Waffle House?
Yeah, and I think we're also enabling the situation. The homeless population has grown so much just in the last 2 to 5 years.
Exactly.
In every city, including Savannah, and I don't understand. We cannot continue to enable them. Like, we have to figure out what the root cause is, according to this. I know.
Yes, the root causes.
Root cause.
Thank you, Kamala.
Yes.
Yeah, there's that. But listen, I had one of my listeners, radio listeners, call me about a year or so ago, who was blind, and he said, I called a restaurant and asked if they had a job for me. Said I could do something. The guy said, can you wash dishes? He said, sure. He said, and by 3 o'clock that afternoon, he was working. Blind. So.
Well, and you see some of these people that are, when I worked in corporate, we had a guy that didn't have any arms, and we sat at a computer all day. He had a pen that he put in his mouth, and that's how he did everything. And then he had a headset in, and he was a sales guy. So I mean, he made it work for him, and he was incredible. But people like that work, and we have people that are fully capable of working saying, I'm on disability. I have a hard time with it, Bill.
Yeah. In fact, and just before we go to break, I remember the story some years ago that Zig Ziglar used to tell about the top author of an expert on tropical fish in America and wrote books on it. He had got bulbar polio when he was like 19. He spent the rest of his life in an iron lung.
Wow.
And was using a special typewriter that was designed for him by General Electric. And he became the top expert on tropical fish and made a fortune with his books on the subject. It can be done. What's your handicap?
Yes, exactly. So
coming up next,
we have more on the Biden administration, some of the things that they have been, cleaning up, Bill.
The hits just keep on coming. Yes, sir. How about that border situation? Next.
At Get Real America, we want to promote your business to our conservative audience.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was that they had come to us because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care can keep families together. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Good morning and welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
It is Tuesday and still a little cool here in Savannah. And by the way, you might want to fill your car up today here in Georgia because the gas tax it goes back into effect as of midnight tonight.
Yes, it was a nice tax-free holiday there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be grateful for that.
And before we go any further, I would like to give a little shout out, Miss Brittany, to my good friend Michael Brooks and everybody, all the staff at South Magazine. This is the latest copy here that you'll want to pick up on your newsstands. Turn to page 42, and you will see the article that they've done on Brittany and me. And you can actually see us all keyed out there.
Yeah, it's very hard to see, but
but there we are on page 42.
It's because we have
just to let you know that they're keeping up with us, and you can find out about a little more about us, and also our dog Vandy here, who's become our mascot. Great shot of him.
Yes, he perfect for the camera, isn't he?
Without a doubt, yeah, he was a real ham.
Yes.
So Meanwhile, meanwhile, back down to trying to find the root causes of what's going on at the border, because the president is on it.
Yes, and there was a massive cleanup that happened in El Paso before he got there, which I thought was interesting.
But just to give you an idea, let's take a look. This is El Paso like last Wednesday. Okay.
You can see the before and after on the bottom.
Yeah, and there it is Thursday on the bottom. Things that make you go,
Did a great cleanup job, didn't they, Bill?
Sure did.
I'm not really sure why they cleaned it up, to be honest. Maybe because there was going to be too many cameras down there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it seems ridiculous.
Yeah, clean it up for the president because it's just a situation.
Yeah, well, I wonder what it'll look like in another week or two. So we'll have to revisit this.
We'll take a look at that picture. And again, he went to El Paso. He didn't go to some of these towns that have been devastated, like the small towns like Eagle Pass, places where we've seen Sarah Carter, Bill Malugin, and Griff Jenkins from the Fox News channel going down there and actually doing real reporting and telling you what the real story is of seeing all these thousands and thousands of people that have that pour right across, and suddenly they turn their town into cesspools. And the ranchers down there that are losing cattle, losing a lot of their crops. It's just pathetic.
Well, and the amount of vehicles being stolen in Texas is absolutely crazy. And just like our friend Lizzie Warren said, the citizens don't matter. They don't care about the Americans here, but they definitely will do everything they can for the illegal immigrants coming in. And I know that people have gotten to the point where they're politically correct and they say, oh, the migrants, to make it sound softer. No, they're illegal immigrants. They're not coming into our country legally, and it makes it hard for the assimilation to happen, which I think people don't understand. That is a big, big issue, especially when you have children coming in that can't speak the language, and then the expectation is put on the American taxpayer that now we need to hire all these people that speak Spanish to educate these children. Assimilation has to happen, and we have to have a plan in place. You cannot just let all of these people in here. And our legal immigration, maybe not the best system, and maybe we can look at that. But at this point, we shouldn't be allowing anyone in because we've got to get our ducks in a row, Bill.
Yeah, they take you about how racist we are on something like this. We closed the border for 30 years, and the reason was assimilation. We wanted people, and when we talked about, so more people now have come across the border in less than 2 years than actually came through Ellis Island. Starting about 1883 all the way to 1942 or something along whatever that period was, or the late 30s. We've had more, and those people came here to be Americans. They came here, they sent their kids to the nearest neighborhood public school, and they taught them in English. They didn't demand to be taught in their foreign language. Some people even changed their names so they could sound more American, or shortened the name. Instead of having Dobolashevsky, they might have just told it to Smith, or whatever.
Yep, there's a lot of Smiths.
Yeah, exactly. So that they would sound more American. They wanted to be Americans, and they wanted to. In fact, one of the greatest public speakers of all time, who just passed away, unfortunately, from cancer a few years back, Jim Rohn. One of the great public speakers. This is a guy you'd pay $5,000 to go to one of his weekend seminars.
Oh, wow.
He could stand up there, and talk for 3 hours and not look at a note, and you'd think you'd been there 20 minutes. In fact, one of his members of his group came up to him at lunchtime one day and said, "Mr. Rohn, you just spoke for 3 hours without looking at a note. How'd you do that?" He said, "It was very easy. I've done it 5,000 or 6,000 times." But his parents were from Denmark. And he said, I could have learned another language. He said, we moved here, moved to a farm in Idaho. And he said, they said, no, we're not going to teach you Danish. We don't live there anymore. We're Americans now. You're going to speak English. And he said, it would have been nice to know the native language. But he said that was the attitude. These people came here to be a part of America. That's why we called it the great melting pot. All these people going to school together, and the great country that we built. Look how well it worked. They didn't come here to be somebody else. They didn't come here to bring their old country with them. Yes, you can be proud of your heritage. Of course you can. We sure celebrated here on March the 17th. Here we got St. Patrick's Day. We have the second largest St. Patrick's Day parade in the world, and the Irish here have made such huge contributions to this community. We can't even count them all. And the same, we've got when I was growing up here, we didn't have any Mexican restaurants. We got them on practically every corner now, and the food's delicious. I didn't know what a taco was when I was in high school. I'd never had one and didn't even know what it was. So you can be proud of your heritage. You can bring that with you, but you can assimilate at the same time to unite for this country. That's what it's for.
Well, and I think Lizzie also mentioned that her grandkids attended Spanish-speaking schools when they lived in Spain, and there was no special English-speaking teacher. Sink or swim was how Spain did it. I bet you when you call the bank over in Barcelona, they didn't say, for Spanish, press 1. No.
For English, learn Spanish.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a good point, and I think that we need to be proud to be American, and I think that that's where a lot of this stuff stems from, is that we don't push Americanism on people coming into this country, and we should. Being an American is something special, Bill.
It was taught that in our public schools. As I mentioned, yesterday, we had in homeroom, we read from the Bible every day. We prayed, we said the Pledge of Allegiance, and in fact, back in elementary school, we were singing "God Bless America" and other patriotic songs, usually a couple of times a week. Mm-hmm. And we were taught about the greatness of America because the teachers that I had were World War II, even World War I generation. So depending on the age of the teacher, but at least they were World War II era types, because my parents were.
Yep, and they are the greatest generation for a reason, Bill.
Yep, no doubt about it.
And, I don't know, Bill. I think that we're seeing also what we have teaching schools right now. Mm-hmm. The people that are teaching in our schools right now are the indoctrinated millennials, which is a very scary thought. I've seen multiple videos. I don't know if you follow the Libs of TikTok on social media. I'm sure you've heard of Libs of TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
The amount of videos that you see of these teachers that are talking about how they talk about sexual fluidity with their kids, and it's always their kids. That's the other thing. Mm-hmm. And the fact that, one of them was saying, I make them call me coach because I'm not male or female. And, she teaches like third graders, and the third graders are like, well, in the Bible it says that you have to be a man or a woman, mm-hmm. and that's what their parents are telling them. And she's like, it's not their fault. Their parents are really indoctrinating them with the Bible. I'm like, these people know no bounds, and they don't have any boundaries with the kids, which I think is going to be a huge issue, Bill, as we move forward in these public schools.
Want to see indoctrination? Look in the mirror, Miss Teacher, and it is your job. Exactly how is this going to help you in life? One of the purposes of school is to learn things, to learn how to think, not what to think. It is to teach you skills. I am scared to death that this is what is being taught not only in our elementary schools and on up, and even kindergarten on up, but it's permeated into companies. It's permeated into medical school. Church. It is just, for example, Vanderbilt University's medical school, which is used to, but I would think would still be one of the world's greatest, had to drop their transgender or their sex change operation just recently. That they were doing gender alteration surgery, and they were finally called out for it. So that's been suspended. And this is, in fact, I think the doctor who was running against Nancy Mace for the 1st District Congresswoman over in South Carolina is at the University of South Carolina Med School, another great one up there at the road in Charleston. But she also was a transgender, or performed
did
sex
trans surgeries,
yeah, sex change, whatever the hell they call it.
It's so foreign to you.
I can't keep up with this. Totally a foreign concept from my generation. That's for darn sure. And we want them to train skilled nurses, skilled surgeons, skilled anesthetist. When you go to sleep for the operation, you want to wake back up. You want the doctor to know what he's doing and fix it and wake back up, and you get better. That's what it's for.
Well, and I think, unfortunately, we have seen the medical profession be taken over by a bunch of leftists, which is it's going to get really dangerous if we don't put an end to it. And we have to end our segment now, but we'll be back after this break, and we'll be talking about how migration and the Holocaust are related.
That's coming up. Hope you're having as good time out there as we are here in the studio.
Get in touch with us at info@granewsmedia.com, or you can give us a call at 912-376-9295. Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard on this Tuesday morning. Once again, remember, if you're just tuning in, the gas tax goes back in Georgia at midnight tonight. So fill up or top off or whatever it is you want to do.
Yes. It was a nice holiday, but...
It was almost a year.
Back to business.
$1.7 billion.
Wow.
That the state did not collect, but we have, because we have such a good governor and we have such good people in the legislature that are meeting now for the 2023 session, that we actually have a surplus. When Republicans took over, when Sonny Perdue was elected governor, and up to a lot of people's surprise, because Roy Barnes outspent him, who was running for re-election, the Democrat outspent him something like 20-1. But when Sonny got in, and they always thought about this, they had this, rainy day fund. He got in, he found out that they'd spent the rainy day fund.
Sounds like the federal government.
We were really in the hole, yeah. Well, now we have about a $5 or $10 billion surplus. So this $1.7 billion, the governor can just say, write a check. But the gas tax will go back into effect as of midnight tonight. And I still think we'll have some of the cheapest gas in the country. We do have the cheapest right now.
Yes, I hope so.
For sure.
Things are getting real expensive, I'll tell you that much.
Boy, they sure are. Well, once again, the news media has discovered something that was quite amazing. One of these great discoveries by that hardworking watchdog press. Apparently from when the Obama administration was going along, good old Obama, the Dalai-Bama, and his cohort, who now happens to be the president of the United States, at least that's what they say.
In name only?
Give me credit, yeah, name only. But he, apparently an investigation has been opened into some of those records. Now, so far we haven't seen him kick in the door with the FBI SWAT team at 3 o'clock in the morning and drag him out in irons in front of his family, but at least
it has to be coming, Bill. It
yeah,
has to be
I
coming
am sure
soon.
it is, and the Communist News Network will be right there on it. But nevertheless, the records have been opened, and the investigation was started by Merrick Garland. Yes, sirree, that Attorney General.
I think we have a clip of that right here.
Here's what happened.
There is breaking news tonight from the Justice Department. Attorney General Merrick Garland has assigned Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney John Lausch to review classified documents from President Biden's vice presidential office at the University of Pennsylvania Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. The classified documents were discovered by President Biden's personal attorneys on November 2nd, the days before the midterm elections. Once the materials were discovered, the White House counsel's office notified the National Archives, who took possession of them. We have much more on this breaking news story later in this show.
So Greta Van Susteren, who's at Newsmax now, and she revealing that little piece of information. So I wonder how far that investigation is going to go, Ms. Brittany.
I don't know. It depends on who's in charge right now, because I don't think that they want Biden to run for a 2024 re-election. I think that there are a lot of people that are not willing to have him be president again, and I don't know if that's where this stems from, but it's quite interesting that these were found on November 2nd, right before the midterm election, and now all of a sudden...
Now we're just finding out about it.
And he's being investigated by the DOJ and a Trump-appointed attorney, which I think is interesting, which could play either way, I think, for us.
I think it'll finally come out, but I was watching the night that President Lyndon Johnson said he wasn't going to run again for president, and that shocked a lot of people. But when I think about it now, and we'll find out one of these days, may not be in my lifetime, might be in yours, but we'll find out that there were a lot of Democrats who probably took him, out to the woodshed and said, this Vietnam thing ain't going well, and it's on your watch.
You're the face of it, right?
And you're exactly the face of it, and boy, was that an ugly face. Nevertheless, but not his fault. But nevertheless, he said, I am not going to run again for president. I have a feeling that he was pressured into it, that he was going to run again for re-election. Not sure he could have been re-elected because of the state of the country and how bad it was of the Vietnam War protests and everything else, and how negative and the press that we were getting on that was. But by the way, we were still appalled at how shabbily our Vietnam veterans were treated. And unfortunately, we kind of recovered our fumble on that count to a great degree. But as one of my friends here, who was a very prominent member of this community, who won a Bronze Star over there, said he came back, he landed at Hunter Army Airfield at about 3 o'clock in the morning. It was raining, and he grabbed his rucksack and got the hell home. He didn't, wasn't looking for any celebration. He didn't, kept his head low. And that's how bad it was. A Bronze Star winner who should have been celebrated, but they're celebrated now, thank God. But the fact that we're finding out about this is just now, and just like the news media finally found out, that discovered that the Hunter Biden's laptop was not Russian, was not a Russian hoax.
It wasn't.
No, but it didn't take him very long. Airhead Leslie Stahl had that interview with the real president, and when he talked about the laptop, well, it had data. We don't know what that is. He said, well, all you have to, why don't you put some of your investigative reporters on it? God knows CBS is supposed to have a few. Meanwhile, not only that the record investigation going on, but also the president was saying what he thinks the real he apparently, this is part of Kamala's job. They did find out the root causes of the immigration situation, and here's what his explanation was.
I mean, it's who we are.
Mr. President, why that migration is a human right? Activists say that it is. What's your take?
Well, I think it is a human right if your family's being persecuted, if you're being dealt with in a way. I mean, I thought it was a human right for, Jews in Germany to be able to get to escape and get help where they could. But the other side of this is there's also the people in this country have basic rights that are here, basic fundamental rights to assure that people are coming, have been checked out, they're not criminals, they're not problem, their background.
I mean, if you could understand him, he's.
But comparing the border crisis that we have, and a crisis it is, to the Holocaust, is incorrigible. And
it's not even close, Bill.
I've met Holocaust survivors. I did my radio show for a week from Israel back in 2004, and I went to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum in Israel. And as President Eisenhower had said when he first saw concentration camps, he looked at his photographer and said, "Start taking pictures of this because nobody's going to believe it." The New York Times certainly ignored the story for practically the 4 years of the war about concentration camps and how bad it was and how Jews were being persecuted and murdered en masse to the tune of about 6 million. But the pictures that I saw of these jackbooted thugs walking down these cobblestone streets, and there's like a 3-month-old child on the street, dead, that they were walking over and stomping on, was just horrific. I mean, it's one of those things that's seared in your mind. And the beautiful thing about that Holocaust Museum is that they had all these records of all these people that were there and survivors. And the great thing about modern technology that they had was putting families back together. They were finding Holocaust survivors who each, like brothers or sisters or cousins or something, each who thought the other had died in a concentration camp, and they were still alive, maybe living only 10 miles from each other and didn't know it.
Wow.
And they were putting these families back together, and what an amazing place. I highly recommend a trip to Israel. It will be so. It's just an amazing place, and they are such wonderful people. And their politics are very much like ours. Most American Jews, I don't know, what happened to you, but they're so liberal Democrats and vote Democrat for the most part. I was expecting something like that when I got there, because in 2004, when we did the show from over there in March of 2004, George Bush was running for re-election against old Boltneck. The haughty John Kerry, who served in Vietnam, by the way. He was there for 4 months. Yeah, won 3 Purple Hearts. Never served a day in the hospital. Amazing. Wow. Yeah, just I think that's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Look it up. But I got to Israel, and where I'm having dinner, I think on that Sunday night before we did our first broadcast, and sitting with these very nice people, and turning, and one of them says, "Boy, we sure hope George Bush gets reelected." And I was like, I thought maybe I'd lost my hearing. I said, what? What did you say? And I'm sitting with the editor of the Jerusalem Post. He says, "Dear God, let George Bush be reelected." And I said, "You need to talk to your American counterparts, because they've got there's something, some wax in their ears or something that you need to pull out." So they are very much, they are very pro-American. And they were so pleased and happy about what President Trump did for them. So that, as Benjamin Netanyahu said, we've never had a better friend than Donald Trump. When he said he was going to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, he did it. Every president, about 3 presidents before that, had promised to do it. Trump did it, and of course the news media said it would start World War III.
It did not. It wasn't even a blip on the radar.
No. As a matter of fact, and all this peace process in the Middle East that we've heard about all these years, and I always fell off the couch when I heard about the peace process in the Middle East and what they were going to do and bring these people together. Trump actually did it, formed these coalitions. That the guy that didn't have any foreign policy experience. But there's more to talk about that tomorrow.
Yes, there is, and I think that one thing I just want to touch on is that other places care about America's news. They follow news more than our own citizens do, because what happens here impacts everyone. So
it is. In fact, we have to get some of our news from the Daily Mail over in London.
Yep.
To find out. But speaking of news, pick up your copy of South Magazine.
Yes, out today at the Fancy Parkers, and I believe out at a pharmacy at the Landings. Next week, it will be on shelves everywhere.
Yeah,
So,
they
very
might just have
exciting
it at
news.
Barnes and Noble.
Yes.
I've been there 8 times to find it, and then. All right, see you tomorrow for Hump Day.
Yes, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Go Dogs.
Have you guys been wondering what happened to Bill Edwards?
I'd like to ask. I'd like to know myself. If you do, let me know, please. We'll tell you how to contact